Thank you, Kim Corler. I want to, on behalf of the government, thank all of the deputies who have made contributions to the debate here today. I want to welcome your positive and supportive comments and the expression of support on the course of action that we're embarking on. The babies in Tuam and the people connected to them have long held a place in my heart. From the very moment I heard of these tragic circumstances, I have made it my mission to do all that I can to give them the dignity and the respect that they deserve, which they never had when they were alive. And that, I suppose, was so integral to my own motivation and work over the past year and 8 months since the juvenile remains were discovered. The headlines, I think, around the world in these past few days also reflect the depth of feeling that exists not only here in Ireland for those with a connection to Tuam, but worldwide for those with a comprehension and an understanding that what we needed to do, we did do it because it was the right thing to do. And I appreciate the support of the House in that regard. We have a duty to act to the greatest possible extent, and I make a commitment here today, as I did to the government on Tuesday, that every effort will be made to locate and recover all the juvenile remains on the site. Many deputies have mentioned that it is important at the same time that we do I suppose, carry with us realistic expectations with respect to the efforts of identifying the remains, particularly in light of the ways in which they were buried in a most undignified manner. At the same time, I suppose what we do know is that we won't really know the extent to which we can succeed until we begin. And it is the government's intention, and I am appreciative of the deputy's support, that we do begin and that we take that phased approach step by step, beginning with the remains that we do know are there and bringing our, I suppose, the scientific team together to do that work. One of the things that I do hope for in that regard, that as they begin that work and bring together the greatest possible expertise in terms of research and people, that we will, even in that site, learn perhaps more about the potential for DNA testing and identification and analysis for the people. And even if ultimately we can't find all of and be able to identify the remains of some of the survivors who believe so deeply that their brothers or sisters are there, at least they will know that we have made every effort. There have been a number of questions that deputies have raised. I won't be able to address them all this afternoon, but certainly we can feed back some answers to you in written form. But many of you have raised the issue, the question of an inquest. And of course, I'm aware that that's been an issue that's raised by the advocates as well, because I've spent a lot of time with survivors and families. And what I would say to that is that it is the coroner in his or her independence who makes the judgment to have an inquest. And in terms of the law, that is on the basis of evidence that's usually brought to the coroner from the Gardaí. That decision has not been taken yet by the coroner in his judgment and in his independent judgment. The second thing to remind deputies that the Commission will be reporting early in the new year, and just Deputy Rabbitt's question there, as I understand it, that is the time frame that has been identified and that we've agreed to, and that is when we'll have the investigation and the findings, and so we may have other information that the coroner needs to attend to. But I can also say that as the excavation and exhumation proceeds, you know, the coroner, needless to say, will be very attentive to what is discovered. And the forensic archaeologist who led the team of the expert technical group who was with me on Tuesday, you know, indicated that it may be possible. It may be possible to identify some of the cause of death in that excavation and exhumation. It may not be. But so I guess what I'm saying there is no, an inquest has not been called for yet. That is dependent on the independent judgment of the coroner, but that is something that the coroner will continue to look at and to consider. I suppose in relation to, and I know because I'm running out of time, but just in relation to a lot of the other issues that were raised, what I will say is that certainly I need to return, part of the government's decision is that I need to return to the government with the heads of the bill, with a detailed project plan, greater estimate of the costs, and of course in order to receive approval and as we go. And I will continue to update the House in that regard, and to the extent that it is possible to have you contribute to those kinds of debates and conversations as we move forward. But I appreciate your deep concern in terms of the urgency of the task, also the concerns around the residents, which we have tried to take account of in the context of the decision, and that we will put in place an ongoing communication and community liaison with those residents. We're aware of the wider issues Deputy Burton and others have raised in terms of the adoption implications of these decisions. Work is going on in those regards and on other aspects of my ministry, but above all, I am deeply grateful for your support for our decision to move to do things that have never been done before in relation to you know, one of the greatest tragedies of our history, and your empathy and your concern to walk with us as we do what we can do.
Thank you, Minister, very much.